Welcome, everyone, to this briefing brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF, and Hebrew name is Abitchonistim. IDSF is a leading Israeli organization advocating for strong national security to defend Israel. Thank you to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning into this briefing so we can bring you behind the headlines what is happening here in Israel. It's a great pleasure to be joined today by Brigadier General Yossi Kuperwasser. General, thank you so much for joining.
My pleasure. Hi, Moshe.
General, you recently were interviewed and spoke
Wait a minute,
about.
wait just 1 second. I have to answer a phone call. Just 1 second.
Okay, we'll be back in a moment with us. Give us 1 minute, please, and we'll get the general back on board.
Sorry, I'm really
All right,
sorry.
you're back. Fantastic. I was saying that you were recently interviewed, I think it was in Ynet, about the concern of jihadi groups in Syria getting access to advanced weaponry. Are you able to share a little bit more about this with our viewers?
Yes, I think that we are still very concerned about the characteristics of the new regime in Syria. The groups that are the most prominent amongst the opposition that became the new government are jihadi groups that formerly were connected with Al-Qaeda, and the leaders were sometimes also members of ISIS. Yes, they have been going through a process of moderation, but when you start that far, even after you get moderated, you are still extremist. And that's why Israel is very concerned about the possibility that they are going to be in possession of strategic weaponry and any kind of weaponry, as a matter of fact. And that's why we carry out those attacks and took the steps along the buffer zone between us and Syria to make sure that we don't have to face these threats coming from radical elements that are now the government of Syria.
Are you able to give us some context, meaning their capacity to be a threat to Israel or the West in terms of the technology they have, the organization they have, versus the Assad regime, versus the influence of Hezbollah in Lebanon? How does it compare? In Syria, sorry. How does that compare?
Well, it doesn't compare it. What we used to have until now is much bigger and more dangerous than these groups. But we saw that we have the experience of what happened in Gaza on the 7th of October and what the Hezbollah prepared along the border with Lebanon with the Radwan forces. You don't have to be equipped with the state-of-the-art weaponry, strategic weapons, in order to carry out such raids as Hamas did on the 7th of October and as these rebels did in Syria during the end of November and the beginning of December. So they are dangerous as they are. And if they are going to be holding strategic arms, this is going to double or triple the threat they pose dramatically. And that's why we don't want them to hold this kind of weapons. They are dangerous in their own way.
For sure. And in terms of the conflict that is brewing now between Turkey and Syria, what is your attitude to how this would impact Israel?
Well, we want to have a quiet neighbor and a friendly neighbor in Syria. And the fact that Turkey stands behind these groups that took control of Syria is a source of concern because Turkey is a part of the Muslim Brotherhood axis in the Middle East, together with Qatar and many other groups that belong to the radical elements within the Sunni Arabs and non-Arabs in the Middle East, Sunni Muslims. And that's why we are a little bit concerned about this development. Of course, it's much better than what was there previously. The Iranian axis was much more dangerous, and we had to worry about it much more, and they were playing with much more dangerous weapons. But these new neighbors that we have are also problematic, and Turkey stands behind them, provides them with weapons and other sources of capabilities to hit Israel. And we are worried about that. The good thing is that Turkey is a member of NATO, has good relations, relatively good relations with the United States and with the West. And this, of course, stops Turkey from moving, or is supposed to stop Turkey from moving too far into a confrontation with Israel. But at the same time, Turkey is one of the sponsors of Hamas. And Hamas has good relations with the Syrian opposition, or with the Syrian new regime. So there are reasons to be worried about these developments, while it is a better situation than the one we had previously.
Got it. Now,
And you have to
General,
remember, Turkey is first and foremost, they are concerned with the Kurdish presence in northern Syria. This is the main goal. But at the same time, they have the appetite to become a hegemon power at least in the northern part of the Middle East, and they have some aspirations to have an impact on the Palestinian issue as well. So we have to be cautious.
for sure. Now, General, every time I have you on the briefing, I ask you the same question. I'm gonna do it again. You, of course, come from the military intelligence world in the IDF. And we know that back on October 7th of last year, there was a colossal problem with military intelligence. And every time I have you back on the briefing, I ask you for an update. What do you think about the state of Israel's military intelligence? How are we doing? Have we still learned the lessons of the past in terms of not allowing an October 7th scenario to repeat itself, wherein the intelligence infrastructure within Israel is not caught off guard for issues that could come up in Syria or Turkey or Iran or places like that?
Well, we should separate between two kinds of intelligence that the intelligence is supposed to provide. One is the intelligence for operations and for targeting. On that part, Israel intelligence is exquisite and supports amazing operations and knows where the targets are, and enable the Air Force and the other elements of the military to carry out really precise attacks and eliminate many of the terrorists that we are facing. And we have an amazing intelligence when it comes to operational needs and targeting. That said, when it comes to strategic intelligence and early warning for strategic matters, we are still struggling. And we have studied the mistakes made before October 7th, but the lessons learning process is slow, and amongst other things, it's a very demanding issue, and not easy to make the necessary adjustments while you are fighting all the time. So there's much more awareness of the limitations of what we can do on that level. And I think what happened in Syria gave us another opportunity to understand those limitations, because as far as I know, there was no early warning about that either. And so it's we are reminded again and again how difficult it is, and how cautious and open-minded we have to be when we talk about all kinds of unintended consequences of things we do, and all kinds of developments that are difficult to assess that they are going to develop.
You know, yesterday on our briefing, General Avivi shared with our viewers that one of the things we're doing at IDSF is building the next generation of leaders, you know, with our Mechina, with our pre-army program in Tekuma, with an eye towards developing and cultivating people now who in 10, 15, 20 years from now won't make those same blunders. And I'm wondering if you think that's what we're looking at here. To solve these intelligence issues, it's about a new generation of leaders, or can we hope to see these changes come into place even sooner? Meaning in this war right now, to learn the lessons and not go back to where we were on October 6th.
Well, I think we hope that we shall learn the lessons much sooner than the time necessary for building a new generation. But we are working simultaneously on breeding the new generation to make sure that they are better equipped and better able to face these kind of situations. I hope that in the future, when people have information that indicates that there's a war coming, they will not ignore it. That is one of the simple lessons learned, and I hope this one is going to be learned. In the end of the day, you got to have some assumption about the enemy in intelligence, but the point is that you have to be able to check them and question them, question your own assumptions again and again and again all the time. And that's what we expect from the intelligence now and in the future.
So, in terms of building deterrence with Israel's enemies, it seems like at least right now, Iran is quiet. The Hezbollah is somewhat quiet. It's quiet in Syria, but the Houthis are just still acting. And even this past Monday, they attempted firing a ballistic missile into Israel. What is your read on the Houthis in terms of building deterrence with them? How Israel is positioning itself to understand that threat and to mitigate it?
Look, regarding the Houthis, the main burden is falling on the shoulders of the United States and the coalition that is built for that purpose. We have to deal with the Houthis as well, because what the Americans and their friends and allies are doing is not enough in order to stop the Houthis from launching rockets and missiles and drones in our direction. So we shall have to do something about it. We did it twice, and we shall have to do it for the third time sometime soon, because this cannot be allowed to continue like that. The Houthis repeatedly say that they are going to continue with it even if there is a ceasefire in Gaza. So definitely they volunteer to keep the war open and bring upon themselves the Israeli rage. And we need to do that because we have to build some sort of deterrence vis-a-vis these Houthis, which represent the Iranians. They don't do that just because this is what they like to do. It is what they like to do, but not only because of that. And so there's a necessity to handle this threat decisively. And I think we're going to see something like that sometime soon.
So if I understand, so in your assessment, what's happening in Yemen is really under control, so to speak. Meaning, even though they're still firing, but it's not like there's this gaping intelligence gap or misunderstanding of who the Houthis are. You're saying there is this broad coalition led by the US, and it's under control, even though it has not yet been solved.
Yes, it's relatively speaking under control. We would like to be better controlled, but for that purpose, we need to do some action ourselves. And it's Yemen is very far away. It's even farther away than Iran is from an Israeli point of from distance point of view. It's not an easy target, but we have to deal with.
For sure. Now, the chief blunder of October 7th was not understanding the motives and the interests of Hamas. And I'm curious right now what we see unfolding in Judea and Samaria with the PA becoming more assertive and aggressive, and now Hamas trying to fight back the PA in Judea and Samaria. Does this present a concern for us about Hamas regrouping in that region?
Of course, and there's a ceasefire coming, and definitely Hamas would like to use it in order to regroup as well. The war is not over in Gaza, and we have to. It has to end with the Hamas removal from power in Gaza, and being replaced with something that would guarantee that Gaza would not form some sort of a threat to Israel in the future. We are going to have, I think so, and I hope so. We are going to have some ceasefire, temporary ceasefire that would allow us to get the hostages back. But the war will probably continue because we cannot afford living next to Hamas in the future.
And then what do you think that would do again for Judea and Samaria? Does it have any impact of what's happening right now in Judea and Samaria? If Hamas is eradicated in Gaza, do they just regroup on the other side of the country?
Well, they are strong in Judea and Samaria anyhow. They don't. It's not because what they do in Gaza. They are strong anyhow. They were strong. They were always strong. And we see the confrontation between them and the Palestinian Authority, especially in the northern part of Judea and Samaria, in Samaria area, and especially in Jenin. They are challenging the authority. They confront each other. They are definitely dangerous from an Israeli point of view, but the other choice is not much better, but it's a little bit better to let the Palestinian Authority control the territory is better than to let Hamas control the territory. And they are challenging, and they are calling upon their people to carry out terror attacks, and not only upon their people, but also they're calling the population in Judea and Samaria to be more involved in terrorism. It's a big challenge, regardless of what's happening in Gaza. Of course, what happened in Gaza for a while was an inspiration for those terrorists in Judea and Samaria. Today, I'm not sure if it is just the same, because Gaza has suffered a lot because of this 7th of October attack. So I'm not sure that the people in Judea and Samaria want to experience the same fate. But some of them still get inspired by what happens in Gaza, unfortunately.
Thank you, General. And I want to thank all of our viewers and supporters who are sending in their questions, watching live on the Zoom, sending them in the chat, or watching on YouTube, liking, subscribing to the channel, and then sending me questions afterwards to present. General, one of the stated war goals is the removal of Hamas as a military and governmental agency. Do you see that as likely that Israel will successfully remove Hamas? They will no longer be in power in Gaza or in Judea and Samaria?
Well, the goal is in Gaza. We are not speaking about Judea and Samaria in this respect. And I hope that it's going to be implemented and achieved. This is a very important goal. And without it, we cannot guarantee that there's not going to be another 7th of October in the future. So that's why it's so necessary. There is some disagreement within the Israeli government or between the government and the security system, security apparatuses. The security apparatus are saying that achieving this goal is going to be very costly, money-wise, and human casualties, soldier casualties, and so on and so forth. It's true that's going to be expensive, but there's no other choice. We have to win this war, and we are bringing in now another division to Gaza, I hope, in order to make this happen. Unless, and maybe it's not going to happen immediately, because we are approaching a hostage deal, but later on we shall have to make it implemented on the ground.
For sure. And an important question coming in from our viewers, a number of people are asking this. What do you believe Israel could or should do with Iran?
Well, I think that what we should do with Iran is to put more pressure on Iran and force it to give up the nuclear project. If they are going to succumb to the pressure that's going to come from the United States and from Israel, all the better. If not, maybe there's going to be a need to use the kinetic power in order to force them to give up the nuclear project. But the Americans are planning to employ maximum pressure on Iran and try to convince the Iranians to give up the project. And the Iranians, after all the defeats that they have suffered in the last couple of months, may come to the conclusion that it's better to give this project up than to put the entire regime in risk, the survival of the regime in risk. So we should give them an opportunity to do that. If not, and I'm afraid they are not going to choose this opportunity, to use this opportunity, then there's going to be a need to use force.
But you are optimistic that there's a chance that diplomatic or sanctions
I'm not
something.
optimistic. I'm saying that we should give it a chance, but I'm not optimistic that this chance is going to be taken by the Iranians. I think they will ignore it. I'm afraid they're going to ignore it, and then we should have to use force.
And if they were somehow to agree to abandon their nuclear interests, does Israel have the monitoring capacity to make sure they would keep to a deal in a way that wasn't present in the JCPOA in the past?
Israel can contribute to the monitoring effort, but of course the monitoring effort should be beyond what Israel can do and should be made of other international forces.
Brigadier General Yossi Kuperwasser, I know you're on a tight schedule, so I'll let you go. I really appreciate your time and willingness to share your deep knowledge of Israel and Israel's security issues with all of our viewers. Thank you for your leadership and all that you do in the IDSF Research Department, really advancing critical issues of Israel's national security. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for all the viewers.
And thank you to
Bye.
all reviewers and supporters for tuning into this briefing. We will be back with you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. here in Israel. Until then, stay safe, stay strong. Take care, everyone.